Hello and welcome back to another episode of Injustice For All MMA. My name is David, and this episode is for UFC Fight Night, Perez vs. Taira. Again, another late episode, super late episode. I'm 2 cards behind. I'm almost close. I'm almost there to UFC 303. But for right now, I just finished scoring Perez vs. Taira. After weeks of not having to hear English commentary in its full form, this week, when I went back to the replay, I had to listen to English commentary. And you know what's so great about English commentary? Is I get to finally hear John Gooden. And John Gooden is arguably, if you know, arguably the best play-by-play guy in the UFC. Next to Anik, I know people love Anik. I like Anik too. But John Gooden is pound for pound number 2. He should be number 2. It sucks he can't do he can't do all the cards, but I wish he could do a lot of these cards. It just so happens that they stuck him next to the 2 worst side commentator guys. What are they called? Hold on. Play-by-play, the 2 worst color commentary guys on the UFC roster, and that is Michael Bisping and Dominic Cruz. Sat right next to them, and for the entire card, I had to hear just, to be fair, in Dom's defense, Dom actually didn't say anything bad. I think it was mostly just Bisping. Bisping, if he's not waffling on a tangent of nothing for an hour, he's just saying the stupidest things, and we'll get to the bits. But this was so unenjoyable. I mean, it started off really groggy, and it ended with me almost punching my fucking computer screen because of how, one moment the commentary goes from saying one thing, they take an observation. And I'll dissect it, but they take an observation, and they use that observation to picture the entire round or fight. And it makes no sense. It's almost as though what they're watching is not a reflection of what is coming out of their mouth. For example, they'll see a pretty woman on the street, and they'll say, "Oh my God, she has such terrible clothes on. Those clothes make her look ugly." But in reality, the girl's very pretty. Maybe I didn't use the right analogy. We'll get to it in a second. All right, let's just start with the fight card. All right, we have the first fight of the night, and that's Knutsson versus Polastri. I had this 30-27 for Knutsson. This is a 30-27 for Knutsson. Okay, no more, no less. First round, Knutsson outstruck Polastri on the feet by 20-plus strikes. Polastri had a takedown pretty much to close the round. She had some ground and pound at the end too, but it wasn't enough. All right, this was like the last 30 seconds. This wasn't enough to deter her getting beat up on the feet for 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Okay, pretty simple. You go to the second round where Knutsson outstruck Polastri on the feet again. This time by 10 strikes. Polastri had a takedown. Okay. Polastri had a takedown with some ground and pound. And when I say some ground and pound, I'm being pretty generous here. When I say some ground and pound, I mean little to no ground and pound. A lot of the shots were missing. She was pretty inactive on top. I mean, she didn't want to strike on top. In fact, Polastri was Knutsson was very active on bottom. It was wild to just see. Polastri gets the takedown, delivers little to no ground and pound. Knutsson is active on the bottom, and then Chris Tione has to fuck it up by just going. There's a moment where Palastri's trying to frame herself in post to kind of get better leverage to land, some cleaner ground and pound, which might have changed the scoring of this round. Instead, Knutsson decides, hey, let me kick her off of me, and none of the strikes land to Palastri's head. None of them. If anything, they're close to the neck. And here's what's funny about this. This isn't a UFC thing. I mean, it kind of is a UFC thing, but it's more or less an MMA thing. But mostly it's a UFC thing. 1 week we will go, hey, that's an illegal eye poke, to it's not an illegal eye poke. Weidman versus that other guy, I can't remember off the top of my head. Then a couple weeks later, we'll go, hey, Michel Pereira just did a backflip and landed on his head. That is an illegal whatever the fuck. No, it's not illegal because wink wink, it's in Brazil, but it's not illegal because it partially landed on the neck, but we just saw it land on the head on replay. So it's not illegal? Okay. Cool. Then this week we'll see, hey, Knutsson just did up kicks that landed. Dude, we see oh my god, I'm going to have a tantrum. We see up kicks every week. All of them land to the chest, to the neck. I mean, sometimes even the sole of the foot, the sole of the feet land to the chin. And granted, they're, again, they're standing. But the point I'm making here is that all of these kicks landed nowhere near to the head while Polastri was grounded. They landed always to the chest or the neck area. Instead, we have a commentary that can't decide whether or not it's correct or incorrect. It's incorrect. And we have a ref, Chris Tione, who decides it's an illegal kick. Okay, so he thinks it's an illegal kick. That's debatable, but it's not. And then you have commentary who's like that. They'll go from being from looking at the replay and deciding, hey, that wasn't an illegal kick, and then changing their mind like 4 seconds in, instead of just standing in the fact that they were right. Okay, that's beyond the point. We move on to round 3. Round 3. Knutsson again outstrikes Polastri on the feet, this time by 13 plus strikes. Polastri gets a takedown with a submission attempt. Knutsson has a reversal, and that pretty much ends the round. 30-27. You go to the judges' scorecards. And all three judges have it the same, 29-28. Mike Bell, Eric Colon, Saul Diamata. They give the last round to Polastri, give the first 2 rounds to Knutsson. I don't agree on that last round. I don't think Polastri did enough to win that last round, but I can't give an honorable mention. All three of them are in agreement there. I would have given a 30-27. So there you have it on that. You go to the next honorable mention. Okay, and it's Costa versus Nuerdanbieke. I'm just going to say Nuerdanbieke. I heard his name 40 times, but it's been a while. Costa versus Nuerdanbieke. Watching this fight, before I even get to the scorecards, watching this fight, it's another fight where I don't really know how to explain this, but a guy doesn't know how to grapple well. Nuerdanbieke gets many, many takedowns, but instead of being able to advance his position, all he's doing is squeezing and holding and squeezing and holding, and is unable. I mean, he has Jaltin Almeida level ground and pound, meaning he has no ground and pound, 0 ground and pound. It was insane. It was insane, so insane that it reflected in the scorecards, at least in my scorecards. I've been so consistent on this, and even when I watch these, I'm always like, oh my god, I don't want to score it this way. If Nuerdanbieke could just punch his opponent on the ground, we wouldn't have to worry about this. So I give the first 2 rounds to Costa. Last round ends in a submission one for Costa, thank God. You go to the first round. Nuerdanbieke had 2 takedowns with very little ground and pound. I mean, little to no ground and pound. Costa had a reversal and was active on the bottom. In fact, he was so active on the bottom, I gave him the round. That round belongs to him. He was so active on the bottom, that round belongs to him. Nuerdanbieke did nothing on top. Okay? We go to the second round. Nuerdanbieke has 2 reversals and a takedown. but Costa has 2 takedowns and a reversal with some ground and pound. I mean, every time he has a takedown and when he has a reversal, he has ground and pound. He's active on the bottom. This second round belongs to Costa. If you don't give the first round to Costa, the second round belongs to Costa. If you do give the first round to Costa, the second round belongs to Costa. The second round is 100% Costa's. Okay? Throughout the night, I hate these Twitter scorecards because sometimes they just make no sense. And throughout the night, most of them made 0 sense. Another thing that didn't make sense is in this second round, oh my Lord and Savior, Bisping, who is, again, pound for pound, worst color commentator, says, you know, it's pretty even on the ground. So he's looking at all the grappling exchanges and going, if the grappling is equal, which technically it really wasn't in this case. I mean, it kind of was, but it kind of wasn't. But in the moment that he said it, I don't think it was. But let's say it was. I think by the end of round 2, it was. But whatever. He says the damage goes to Nuerdanbieke, and he says there's no damage, right? He was saying that there was no damage from Costa, that the damage would then go to Nuerdanbieke, and I was like, has he been watching? Nuerdanbieke hasn't been active down here. In fact, there's been many times, bro. John Gooden is the greatest. There were many times Nuerdanbieke would get the first takedown, and he kind of didn't say anything. He kind of just let it go. He got another takedown, and he was like, hey, Nuerdanbieke has to do something here, which is John Gooden's way of telling commentary, hey, can you guys talk about how Nuerdanbieke needs to be active here? Instead, Dominic Cruz, his mind just flows into a different level of... His mind just wanders into something else that has nothing to do with what the fuck is going on the ground. Cool. Whatever. Dom's in his own world. Bisping, on the other hand, decides, hey, there's no damage. There's no damage from either of these guys. I'm sitting here... John Gooden's like, yo, what the fuck is he talking about? Costa's being active on the bottom here. Nuerdanbieke isn't being... He's like, hey, you have to do something. It's almost like John Gooden knows what the fuck is going on. Anyways, whatever. Well, my mind is It's crippling. It's hurting my head. This fight ends in the third round by submission. Costa wins by submission. Last thing I wanted to talk about before we get to the scorecards, the fist tap. This is like the 17th billionth time seeing someone tap with their fist, and it's infuriating. And you know what? I love the way John Gooden called it. He said Nuerdanbieke what is the fucking name? Nuerdanbieke. He said begrudgingly taps. He said something like begrudgingly or frustratingly or whatever. He used the right adjective instead of what Brendan would probably call it, like, oh, he tapped. It's like, no. He didn't just tap. He did the Arlovsky tap, where Arlovsky got caught by fucking Aspinall, and Arlovsky just did like a one tap. And I remember, I still can't take it out of my head. It just pissed me off in that moment of like, are you guys too manly to tap? When has that been like the new tap? And granted, people have done that before. I've seen that done before. It's just the way it's done now that looks so goofy. This quick little like rabbit punching to the chest or the arm. Whatever. We go to the judges' scorecards. And oh my god, they didn't even post it. They double posted it. Hold on a second. This is insane. Give me one quick moment. Okay. We're back, and I finally have the scorecards. Okay. So, I gave the first 2 rounds to Costa. All 3 judges, Anthony Maness, Chris Lee, Saul Diamante, they gave the first round to Nuerdanbieke. Honorable mention. I disagree with that. I don't care what anyone says. Second round, they all gave it to Costa. So, there you have it on that. We go back to the regular scorecards real quick so we don't get lost in our tracks here. And we go to the first robbery of the night. The only robbery of the night, actually. Judice versus Fernandes. Watching this live, not live, watching this, on the replay. It's another optic fight, and the reason why I call it an optic fight is because in commentary you can hear Bisping just kind of say, he mentioned how when Judice got hit with something, her body makes a movement as opposed to Fernandes, whose body was definitely feeling these things, but because she's built like a brick, her reactions aren't going to be as expansive. Regardless of the point, she lost this fight. This isn't a close fight. She lost this fight. I had this 29-28 for Judice. First round for Judice. Last round for Judice. We go to the first round where Judice outstrikes Fernandes by about four strikes. Now this starts off with Judice getting outstruck heavy in the first minute of the first round. Right, she's getting outstruck by a lot. She then comes back, evens up the strikes, starts to outstrike her by a bunch, and then towards the end of the round, she slowly kind of loses her lead, but she still outstrikes her by about four strikes. She wins this round. Okay, you go to the second round. I'm trying to make sure I'm on the right one here. You go to the second round, and Judice has 2 takedowns, but Fernandes has a takedown, and she outstrikes Judice on the feet by about 2+ strikes. This is her round for sure. And then you go to the third round, which is phenomenal. Judice outstrikes Fernandes by about 25+ strikes. This is a 29-28 Judice, and instead we just get the wrong scorecards. Mike Bell gives the first 2 rounds. It gives the first round to Fernandes. Ridiculous. Honorable mention. Same thing with Chrisley. First round to Fernandes. No. Adelaide Burt has the correct scorecard, and that's the first round for Judice, last round for Judice. Judice got robbed. She looked really nice. Her striking looked really nice. We'll talk about other people's striking in a moment, but her striking looked really nice, and she should have won this fight. It sucks that we're in this weird stage in MMA where everyone keeps talking about damage, and we get it. We get the talking point. But they're both getting damaged, and one is landing, and one is outstriking the other. Can we just get back to the basics of what this is? Not only did she outstrike her, she outdamaged her, if you want to use that verbiage. Okay? But whatever. I'm talking to nobody at this point. We go to the next honorable mention. We go to the next honorable mention, and that's Flick versus Maness. This one kind of pissed me off a little bit. I'm not gonna lie to you. Flick versus Maness. I had this 30-27 for Maness. This is a 30-27 Maness. Okay. I want to talk about the first round real quick. If I can find it. Maness outstruck Flick by about 10+ strikes. Flick had a Von Flue that wasn't really in. It wasn't really in. Second round, Flick had a submission attempt, but Maness got out of that. Maness outstruck Flick on the feet, and he had to take down with some ground and pound. That's Maness's round, of course. And then the third round, Maness outstruck Flick by about 20+ strikes. I heard 29-28, which means the only round you can think about, or you're thinking about, is the first round. That Von Flue was not in. It just wasn't in. Which means that first round goes to Maness. Okay. You go to the judges' scorecards, and Saul Diamata, he has a 30-27. Junior Joe Camija has a 30-27. Tony Weeks is the only one who gets the first round to Flick. Honorable mention to Tony Weeks. We move on. We go to the next We go to the next honorable mention, and that's Quinlan versus Fugitt. This fight ended in a split decision. I didn't think this was a split decision, but it was. Looking back, I guess in time, I kind of understand it given how slow the pacing of this was. So I want to say honorable mention, but I won't say honorable mention. But I will still, because I feel like there's enough strikes in here to get this correctly. Anyways, I had this 29-28. Last 2 rounds to Fugitt, the first round to Quinlan. We go to the description. In the first round, Quinlan outstruck Fugitt by about 3 strikes. Second round, Fugitt outstruck Quinlan by about 4 strikes, and then the third round, Fugitt outstruck Quinlan by 6 strikes. Pretty simple here. We go to the judges' scorecards. Junichiro Kamijo, he has a 29-28 for Fugitt. Chris Lee, he has the correct person, but he scored the rounds weird. He gives the first round to Fugitt, honorable mention. He gives the second round to Quinlan, honorable mention. And then he gives the last round to Fugitt. Okay. Just off, but he has the right person. Anthony Maness gives the first 2 rounds to Quinlan. That's ridiculous. Honorable mention there. We go to the next thing on the scorecards. We go to literally the most boring fight on the... Why wasn't this a split decision? Someone tell me why this fight wasn't a split decision. This was Silva V Andrade. Silva V Andrade versus Miles Johns. Okay, if I can scroll down to it real quick. Right. I'm just going to say Silva versus Johns. This fight was so... I truly believe you can argue this fight for either person. There's 2 close rounds. The first round's close and the third round's close. I had this 29-28 for Johns. You can argue, guys, you can argue a 30-27 Johns. You can argue a 29-28 Silva. Just I don't want to call it boring. That's not the right word. But it's just, when I saw this fight on before I even scored it, I was like, given the last few Miles Johns fights, this is going to be a dud. And technically, I was right. This was a dud. Let me just skip over the theatrics and just get to it. Yeah. So 29-28 for Johns. Close marker on the first round. And the third round, you go to the descriptions. In the first round, it was even on the feet. You count up the strikes, it's even on the feet with the edge to like Johns, because he's technically the aggressor. I don't know what to say here. You can argue the round for Silva if you want to. It's very close. You go to the second round where Johns outstruck Silva by 12 strikes. This is the only definitive round. Johns outstrikes Silva by 12 strikes here. And then you go to the third round where, again, it's even on strikes with the edge to Silva. Again, I can't confidently say Silva won this round. Now, I gave it to Silva via the fact that Silva landed the heavier strike. It's even on strikes. He landed some of the more heavier strikes. A lot of the strikes were different. He also attempted a takedown as well, or at least pushed him, clinched up with him. I'm just reaching for straws at this point. Boom. You can argue this. You really can argue this fight for either person. You go to the judges' scorecards, and most of them were pretty much like, hey, fuck it. 30-27, 30-27. Eric Colon and Soldi Amato, 30-27 for Johns, and the Junichiro Kamijo decides 29-28 for Johns as well. Gives the last round to Silva V Andrade. His scorecard reflects mine. There you have it. And then you go to, I don't know why this pissed me off so much, Perez versus Taira. Gave the first round to Perez. ends in a TKO win for Taira. Pretty much Taira gets on top of Perez's back and then attempts to bring him to the ground and folds Perez's leg up. And I still don't know what he's injured with. I searched online for everything. I don't know what's up with Perez's leg. Either way, it's a TKO win. He caused the injury. It's a good one for Taira. It's a good one for Taira, but Taira looked like shit before the takedown. And here's my point. Let's go to the first round. Perez outstruck Taira and had a takedown. He was up by 11 plus strikes. This is what I want to talk about. Perez outstruck Taira. Tell me why I'm watching this fight. Perez is outstriking Taira. And all I can hear, the only thing I can hear in the background is Bisping's annoying voice in conjunction with shitty scorecards being presented in front of me going, close round, but Taira won. Who is Ryan Oh my God. Let's start off with the scorecard of it's a close round. First of all, it's not a close round. This wasn't a close round. Perez is outstriking Taira the entire round. He takes him down to the end, but fuck that. Even if he doesn't get a takedown, he's outstriking him. So he wins. He wins the round. All I'm hearing is, man, Taira's 24 years old. Taira's a baby. And his striking looks so clean. Who gives a hold on. Who gives a fuck if his striking looks clean? This is like when people talk. This is like pre us finding out that Chaos Williams was trash. People would be like, "Oh my God, Chaos Williams has power," and then we saw him fight that one kid from South America, and we were like, "No, his striking is really, really bad," and also he might. I mean, I guess technically he has power. The point is that his striking is bad. His striking is very, very bad. And then you switch over to this fight where Taira's striking looks so crispy. It looks so smooth. Judice had better striking than him. And you know, when we compliment Judice, it's because she's winning. When we compliment people like Calvin Kattar and Rob Font and people whose striking we give them the crispy label to, of their striking looking like kind of robotic, but in a good way, it's because they're winning and they're doing effective things. Taira's striking, yes, a lot of the strikes were very nice and they landed and whatever. A lot of the strikes were blocked, deflected, just hit the hands of Perez, and yet it's commentary just going, look how amazing his striking. He's 24 years old. He's only gonna improve. It was only up until It was only up until the start of the second where we had to finally hear someone. I forgot if it was Dom or if it was Gooden. I think it was Dom, where Dom finally said. And I'm not blaming Dom because I don't think Dom really mentioned much about this. It was only until Dom comes out and says, yeah, but I do want to acknowledge that Perez is like landing. Perez is like outstriking Taira. Like finally someone mentions that, like, hey, you guys are talking a lot about Taira's hands. He's losing. Like he lost the first round. He's losing. And for some reason, they're just glazing Taira for absolutely no reason whatsoever. It was the most confusing watch in the world. You're watching one thing where you're like, wow, Perez is really outstriking. Oh my God, Perez is like touching up Taira. Okay. And then you're hearing Bisping slobber on the mic go, Taira looks amazing. Taira looks. He's only 24 years old. What the fuck are you on? Anyways, whatever. That's pretty much the point. That's the point. You go to the judges' scorecards, and they all look correct. Okay, Mike Bell, Diamano, Chris Lee have eyes, and it's a 10-9 on all their scorecards for Alex Perez. Sadly, he lost. It is what it is. I was rooting for Taira, so I don't want this to sound like I hate Taira. I was rooting for Taira, but come on. Like, you can, even when you're rooting for someone, you can still say, and when I say rooting, I don't mean I'm scoring this rooting for. I'm just in my head. I'm like, wow, I hope Taira wins this matchup, and then I'm scoring it. But even when you're scoring it, you're like, When is Taira going to go for a takedown? No? Okay, he goes later in the second round, right? When is he going to go for a takedown? He's not. He's just going to strike with Perez. Oh, he's losing. Simple stuff. That's the end of it. Thank you all for listening. Hopefully tomorrow I'll have both cards up. Probably not, but hopefully I'll have the Whitaker versus what's his name? Alskarov. Hopefully I'll have that fight up. Thank you all for listening, and God bless.